I don't need, I've got my version there. Thank you. Okay, so this is our last evening on this topic of exploring the path, and we've had a bit of not so much a sort of smooth run with these teachings because of, it's been chopping, interrupted. So I thought tonight to make sure we cover the whole path. So at the end of last time, we got up to the end of the small scope, so lower scope, small scope. And so now tonight, I thought if we refer to the 3 principles of the path, we're bound to cover everything. Sounds good? Okay. You like my thinking? Good. So you'll have to find out what page it is there because I've got a different book. 3 principal aspects of the path. 149 or 249. Somebody tell me if I'm right or wrong. Or close. Might be 255. Oh, well, in the ballpark, 143. Okay, so starting here, we finished the small scope, so the training in the path of the middle capable being. So first of all, we've talked before about this, establishing the nature of the path. So we have these 3 levels, which is for one individual, the graduated path to enlightenment, as laid out, Lama Atisha taking the Buddha's teachings and making it very coherent so we can follow along the path. Here, in the middle capable being, we talk about it being the common path. So the common path implies that it's the path shared with Mahayana practitioners, even though the goal is personal liberation, self-liberation. This is called common because it's shared to both, we would say today, Theravada and Mahayana practitioners, right? So Mahayana of all traditions. And then some of the trainings, the type of physical rebirth that will stop samsara is what we covered in the small scope, the type of path that would stop samsara in terms of here we are introducing the individual path to liberation, and the 3 higher trainings which are necessary for us to establish ourselves on the path. The higher training in ethics based on whatever vows we've taken, refuge vows, bodhisattva vows, tantric vows, whichever level of vows we've taken, and maintaining those ethics purely, which is part of how we got a perfect human rebirth in the first place, by maintaining that in past lives, if only we could remember. And of course, making stainless prayers, practicing the 6 perfections, but particularly generosity. And then on that basis of being able to control our body and our speech, so the externals, our external expressions of our mind, then subduing the mind, cultivating the higher training of concentration. So we talk about achieving shamatha, calm abiding, single point of concentration, same thing. And in other words, having a mind that's serviceable, so that then we train in wisdom, the understanding of reality as it is, not as our mind tells us it is. Right. So they become essential then, prerequisites. Okay. So then looking at the 3 principles of the path, which is the mind of renunciation, the mind of bodhicitta, and the correct view. So these are the 3 principles. This was composed by Lama Tsongkhapa and is one presentation on the Lam Rim, on the graduated path to enlightenment, step by step, as is, the greater treatise by Lama Tsongkhapa, the Lam Rim Chenmo, the great treatise on the path, and then the other abridged versions like the Foundation of All Good Qualities, and then the sort of slightly expanded in Hymn of Experience. and 3 principles of the path. It just sort of approaches it from a different way of presenting it under these 3 topics. So we'll go through this now. So the first principle, first of all, the beginning, the prologue, the introduction. So first of all, we have the expressing homage. I bow down to my perfect gurus. So the homage at the beginning, it could be to Manjushri, it could be to Chenrezig, Arya Avalokiteshvara. Here it is clearly my perfect gurus. So this is whoever we regard as our spiritual teachers, our gurus. This is paying homage to those. And then the promise to compose, the essential meaning of the victorious one's teachings, the Buddha's teaching, the path praised by all the holy victors and their sons, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, the gateway of the fortunate ones desiring liberation, that is us. This I shall try to explain as much as I can. So he expresses that with humility. There's always some sort of promise of composition from the author, in other words, to protect the mind of the author. And then it's still part of this introduction, persuading to listen. Those who are not attached to the pleasures of circling samsara, who strive to make freedoms and endowments meaningful, in other words, this precious human rebirth, having met the Dharma, having wished to follow the Dharma, having not been reborn in other places of intense suffering. So having, the importance of knowing that the freedoms that we have and the particular opportunities or leisures that we have to be able to do that, who entrust themselves to the path pleasing the victorious ones, so, the path to Buddhahood, to enlightenment. This is what pleases them. You fortunate ones, listen with a calm mind. So Lama Tsongkhapa say, who is he addressing? People like us. So listen with a calm mind. So first of all, we try and get our mind calm. An open mind, etc. And then we come on to the actual first of the 3 principal aspects. Here it says the purpose for generating renunciation, or the need to generate renunciation. So renunciation in Tibetan is this word nyenjung. So nyeng from nyengpa means definite. And then jung from junga means obtaining or emerging. So we usually say definite emergence or definitely emerging. And what we're talking about emerging from is samsara. What is samsara? All our afflictions, all our delusions that cause us all our problems. So we can say that it's emerging from that muddy mess of our mind, of the confused, deluded, afflicted state of mind, the disturbed state of mind, the non-calm mind, and the aspiration to be free of that, the aspiration to have a peaceful mind, a serviceable mind, to have a focused mind. And if not, then all the positive qualities, so that once we create the space and purify the delusions, there's space for those positive qualities that are natural to us to grow. So this is the idea of definite emergence. So we say, I'm not there yet. I'm still subject to these afflicted states of mind, anger, frustration, anxieties, jealousies, all these things we have, pride. However, I'm working on it. I'm working on it. So this is the definitely emerging, if you like. We haven't emerged, but we're definitely emerging. So, the analogy is always of the lotus coming out of the mud of our samsaric existence. And when the lotus blossoms, the mud doesn't stick to it. You just get this beautiful flower. But it's all that muddiness is like the cause, in a weird way, for us to blossom out of that. We've got to do a bit of work in that. So renunciation of delusions, in particular attachment. Why in particular attachment? Because it's the root ignorance that propels us into cyclic existence. But we would say it's attachment to being, attachment to coming into existence, attachment to stuff in samsara. So that even though we think about it as a cycle of suffering, nonetheless, the suffering that we don't realize is suffering is the things that we get sucked into that are pleasurable. So I was in Woolworths today, and there was someone doing a demo on Lindt chocolate. And I thought they were going to call me over, because that's the sort of thing when they do demos. Would you like a taste? Absolutely not. I don't eat chocolate. But unfortunately, I didn't get the opportunity to say that. But at least I thought one samsaric thing that a lot of people get hooked into that I don't. I mean, I'm not saying there's a lot of others I do, but at least that one I don't. Because I can sell you a mean chocolate and Lindt, I don't need to say, right here. Okay. So this renunciation, the intent to be free from samsara and those change of attachment, our desires, our cravings and so forth that lead us down the aisles in the supermarket and elsewhere that we don't really want to be in. So renunciation, so the three principles. Then the right view, realizing emptiness, realizing reality as it is, which eliminates that root ignorance, which is our confused mind, the ignorant mind of self-grasping, grasping at having a self. You can see how that's tied up with attachment. As soon as I go like that, I'm clinging, I'm grasping, which is attachment gone to, an extreme level. I'm attached to being, even though I'm going to die, I'm still attached to being alive. Thank you very much. I'm not making plans for my death, I'm making plans for my life. Maybe I should make plans for my death. I mean, it's in the Buddhist teachings, isn't it, from day one? Plan for your death. I very much make plans for my life. And I think we pretty much all do. Of course, we can say practicing Dharma is the plan for death. And then bodhicitta, which eliminates the self-cherishing thought. So on top of this self-grasping, we clutch at me and mine, the mine. I'm going to, sort of cherish myself. I'm going to look after number one. And I used to hear that in ads when I was in the US. Look after number one. Yeah, it was sort of like, you're surrounded by it, look after number one because you deserve it. And there's so many things you deserve, including chocolate. Just saying, I use it for all the ads, because you deserve it. And so it very much feeds that self-cherishing thought. Oh, you've got to look after yourself. And yes, of course, we have to look after ourselves. We have to look after our health. We have to be sensible so that we can, as Dharma practitioners, practice the Dharma and so forth and do as much as we can to train our mind. So this one, the bodhicitta mind, which involves a complete turnaround, a complete orientation shift from just thinking about ourselves to actually turn our orientation outwards instead of inwards, to embrace others. So there's a complete different orientation. And generally we call this bodhicitta mind the either awakened mind or awakening mind of enlightenment. So sometimes the awakened mind of enlightenment sounds like you're already there. But if the intention isn't awakened, then we can't cultivate bodhicitta. It's got to sort of wake up that intention to become enlightened. And so we need the realizations and to actualize the generation and completion stage. So that's then looking at Tantra, highest yoga Tantra, which one needs to accomplish for Buddhahood, but on top of the sutric presentation of the Lam Rim. Okay. So that brings us to verse 3, why you need renunciation, the purpose of generating a mind of renunciation, of definite emergence. So we want to get out of samsara. So Lama Tsongkhapa says, without the complete intention, complete, like 100%, no less, intention definitely to be free from circling, no wavering about, no, yeah, maybe, definitely to be free from circling. And I think we need that much effort because we're drawn back in every single moment, aren't we, into stuff that we can approach from a Dharma point of view, but then we get drawn into it from a very ordinary, mundane, and we sort of lose that perspective. So without that definite, complete intention, definitely to be free from circling, there is no way to pacify that attachment or pacify this problem mind, seeking pleasurable effects in the ocean of circling. So when we talk about the pleasurable effects in the ocean of suffering, this very much is echoed when we do the Guru Puja and you go through the Lam Rim reflection towards the end, developing the wish for liberation. So it's the same idea of renunciation, violently tossed amidst waves of karma and delusions. So waves, because we have, highs and lows. We have our positive karma ripening. We have the lows. We have the crashes of the, destructive emotions and so forth. All of that ripening, and it's unstable. Right? It's like here and there. We're tossed about, and we feel out of control, plagued by the many sea monsters of the three kinds of suffering. So suffering of change, and all pervasive suffering. And that's really where we come to in the middle scope, is the all pervasive suffering. So in the fact that, so in the small scope, one of the causes for taking refuge is realizing the suffering of lower realms, and we don't want to have that. Thank you very much. So fearful of that. So we want to protect our mind and take vows and to protect and be guided by the Buddha to protect against that. But when you get to the medium scope, you get to the presentation on the Four Noble Truths, which was interesting. It was actually the first of the Buddha's teachings. And then you learn about the more pervasive levels of suffering and say, actually, wherever you're born in samsara, it's a mess. And you're going to suffer in the higher realms as well as. We know suffering as human beings, but we also know there's a possibility to be free of that, which is why we have this freedom and why we're here. I seek your blessing to develop intense longing to be liberated from this infinite and frightening great ocean of existence. Okay. Also, going back to the three principles, by craving for cyclic existence, embodied beings are continuously bound. Therefore, at the very beginning, seek renunciation, the very beginning of the path, seek renunciation. So again, if I look at the equivalent verse in the Guru Puja, the next verse, having abandoned the mind that views this unbearable prison of cyclic existence as a beautiful park, right? So this being continuously bound is like being in a prison, and we don't realize. I seek your blessings to hold the three trainings again. So it comes back to the three trainings of ethics, concentration, and wisdom as the treasure of the Arya's wealth. So an Arya being is a being who has a direct perceptual realization of emptiness. So ethics, concentration, and wisdom are also common trainings, which is the wealth of the Aryas. So in other words, to be able to cultivate renunciation, to cultivate, achieve the goal of liberation, we need to train in the three higher trainings, and thereby to uphold the victory banner of liberation. So the victory banner is one of the symbols that we have. We talk about the 8 auspicious signs, and one of those is a victory banner. It's sort of like parasol type thing with silk, what do we call them? Flags coming down, curling down. And it's representing dependent arising for our activities of our body, speech, and mind, of ours and others, to not have obstacles or disharmonious conditions. Actually, the 8 auspicious signs in entirety. Actually, I've got the banners to go up on this wall. I guess she's open said 8 auspicious signs. I've got the banners for the 3 of these walls. Yeah, they're the 8 auspicious signs. There, and they're up here on the altar as well, because they're for harmony. Altogether, they're for harmony. But also, in particular, the banner is for to prevent obstacles or disharmonious activity conditions. And for so there's one that's a parasol, that one that you can tell looks like a parasol. I mean, I can't see it from here. Turn it around, lift it up and turn it around. Or get the one off, oh, you won't, 2 off the altar. It's on the top. No, you don't have to pull it down. Oh, too late. It's on the, it's next to the fish up the top over the other side. That's it. That's the victory banner. It would fly on top of high buildings and have a precious jewel on top, and there's lots of stories told about the precious jewel on the victory banner, etc. But representing the precious teachings of the Buddha, right? And that they be victorious. So they be victorious over all sorts of, we say the maras. So that mainly the mara of the afflictions. We talk about the mara of death, the mara of the aggregates, all the obstacles we suffer with this body and mind. And the mara of Deva's son is generally called the mara personified, that it seems like obstacles coming through interferences, spirit interferences, or other people, or whatever. It appears in that way. Okay. So then verse 4, how to, so okay, we need to develop renunciation. How do I do that? So it says freedoms and endowments are difficult to find. So that's the having this precious human rebirth. And life has no time to spare. So that is reminding us of death, that impermanence and death, that time's running out, by gaining familiarity with this. So this is training our mind over and again to remember how precious this life is, not to take for granted what we have, on top of having a functioning body and mind, having all the conditions to practice Dharma, and how rare that is. And it's increasingly rare in this world, having all those opportunities. And there's not, time's running out because our lifespan's running out. So contemplating all the points on, of the Lam Rim, on precious human rebirth, on death and impermanence and so forth. By gaining familiarity with this, attraction to the appearances of this life is reversed. The things that look like they're going to give us lasting happiness. People or objects of our senses that are pleasurable, but not necessarily reliable, lasting conditions for happiness, because they're based on the senses, which themselves are impermanent, so they can't be lasting. So we need to reflect over and over again, because we get hooked in, sucked in over and over again. By thinking over and over again, that actions and their effects are unbetraying. So karma, cause and effect, is certain, as we know, unbetraying. It is definite, it is individual, it is personal. There's no mistakes. It's not just bad luck. So in that way, they're unbetraying, that the results will definitely come, whether we understand that or not, whether we believe in it or not, we experience the results, both of our negative karma, based on our afflicted, deluded states of mind, and our positive karma based on our virtuous states of mind, like being here for the teaching, setting virtuous motivation and so forth, engaging whatever acts of kindness and so forth with our body, with our speech, and repeatedly contemplating the miseries of cyclic existence. Sounds a bit depressing, doesn't it? But it's to turn us off the things that we think are wonderful, so we don't get so attached to them. Like the delicious, shall I say, chocolate cake. And if you divide it up into all its ingredients and you just say, well, which one of these ingredients, or is it just the combination of all or whatever that I'm attached to? Is it just the taste? Like, is it really healthy for me? Or is it just the taste? So it's just stops here at the taste buds, you know. The deliciousness stops here. You never eat a cake again and enjoy it, will we? I'm not really a cake eater either. But, you know, we can think about that and think, yeah, where is it? Or as they, you know, baristas say that after the first mouthful of coffee, people don't taste the rest. So you pay for a whole cup and you just one sip and you're done for. I think you're done for at the smell. I think you could just go in and smell the aroma and not pay a cent and thank you very much. Got my hit. Yeah. Smells great. Goodbye. Yeah. By thinking over and over again, that actions and their effects are unbetraying, and repeatedly contemplating the miseries of cyclic existence. In other words, no matter where we'll be reborn, we experience problems, difficulties, even developing the higher training of concentration. If you take the path to abide in that concentration and you attain all these levels of absorption, we talk about the first, second, third, fourth jhana. So you develop you enter the fourth form and formless realm, where the body becomes not so much a physical body, and so you don't have the sufferings based on the body. You still have the pervasive suffering. You still could, and you could still waste that time and then find yourself in the lower realm because you've run out of all the ripening of your merit, of your virtuous karma, and then you go plummeting down again. Sounds very depressing. Apparently, we've all been there. The peak of existence, almost out of samsara. So why are we still here, grasping at being? So, by contemplating all of this, attraction to the appearances of future lives is reversed. So, stopping the desire to have another body, to have a future life, it's pretty scary, isn't it? It's thinking, oh, I don't need a future life. That's pretty scary. And by the way, in my future life, I'm going to look exactly the same and think exactly the same as I am now. No, but that's what we grasp at, isn't it? I mean, maybe you've got some gorgeous other body you want to be reborn into, but that could be. But generally, we have a concept of ourselves permanently going on and on and on. Okay. And how do you know when you found renunciation? So here, the definition of having generated renunciation, how you know you've achieved this, when, by having trained in that way that we've just been discussing, there's no arising even for 1 second, even a second, of attraction to the perfections of cyclic existence. So there's nothing attractive here. And all day and night, the intention seeking liberation arises, then the thought of renunciation has been generated. So that all day and night, even in your dreams, even when you're asleep, there's no attraction. It's just this definite, the thought of definite emergence, that you've relinquished attachment. You still can have the things, you can have everything because you're not attached to it. So it can be here or not here, it doesn't matter. You can have or not have, it doesn't matter. So then this quote from Lama Tsongkhapa and commentary by Pabongpa Rinpoche. Lama Tsongkhapa, there's a little book, The Principal Teachings of Buddhism. It's just a very small book by Lama Tsongkhapa. So here, why the first stages are taught under, 2 stages are taught under renunciation, is a unique feature of this work, and here's the reason. Renunciation is the one special cause that brings you what we call great compassion. We don't normally see renunciation as the cause for great compassion, but if we're relinquishing attachment to self, we're already changing our orientation. To get to this compassion, you must first find true thoughts of renunciation, to truly, not to give everything away, but to not be attached to everything. Enjoy it while it's there, while it lasts, and then when it's gone, don't miss it. And not craving to have more of the same experiences. Just like when Jetsuma Tenzin Palmo ordained and her princess friend took her to her palatial abode, literally, her mansion or whatever it was. And she said, I can't go there. I've just become a nun. I've renounced all of that. Oh, you can enjoy it. You can go to your cave, you can enjoy that. Fair enough. You know, enjoy whatever conditions you have. So that's the mind of renunciation. So then this quote from Shantideva, Bodhisattva's Way of Life. If people like these, it's like us, have never before, even in the dreams they dream, felt such a wish for themselves, in other words, to be free from samsara, then how can it come to them for others? How can we have that wish for others? If we haven't had that wish to be free, and then on the basis of that, we see the possibility, and then we think, hold on, that's fine for me, but what about everybody else? You know, what about my dear loved ones? What about my family and friends? You know, it's all fine for me. I'm feeling fine. I'm feeling blissed out. I'm feeling free. Great, but nobody around me does. You know, we feel a bit weird. Thus, we can say that renunciation and compassion are the same state of mind. Interesting, isn't it? It's the same state of mind. Renunciation and compassion are the same state of mind, just the orientation is different. Just that one is developed by meditating on your own situation and the other by meditating on others' situation. So we see the suffering of samsara that we experience, and then so it's the same mind, but the object of that mind is different. So instead of the object being myself, the object is others. So I was just looking, there's this quote from His Holiness the Dalai Lama, quoting Lama Tsongkhapa from the Hymn of Experience. If you do not make an effort to think about true suffering and its drawbacks, you will not develop a keen interest, if you do not consider the means whereby true origins, causes of suffering, of all suffering, place and keep you in cyclic existence, you will not know the means for cutting the roots of this vicious cycle. Therefore, cherish, exuding total disgust and renunciation of such existence by knowing which factors bind you to its will. No mincing of words there. This vicious cycle. Bind you to the wheel. So when we look at the 12 links and the wheel of life, sometime soon going to emanate on that wall. And we can see, you know, which of those links, which of those factors are that bind me to continuing on this cycle, lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. And Amazon Kappa says, to develop this compassion, so the mind of renunciation, self-centered, self-oriented, the mind of compassion, other-oriented, we must undertake to study and contemplate the steps on the path to Buddhahood, the Lam Rim. So we've got to study and then contemplate, because the studying gives us all the reasons and all the examples and teachings of the Buddha, and then contemplate on those. And then we discuss it, express our doubts, get deeper meaning. Then we meditate on that until it becomes part of our nature. That great teaching of the gentle protector Tsongkhapa. So gentle protector is a reference to Manjushri, one of gentle speech, literally, is what is Manjushri's, the meaning of Manjushri's name, the gentle protector Tsongkhapa, and thus gradually train our minds. So how do we gradually train our minds? We've got many different teachings on the Lam Rim, many teachings on the Lam Rim. And we've got something like, you know, the Lam Rim year, you know, day by day reflections on the Lam Rim, going through all the stages, start at the beginning of the year and go through, start today and go through 365 days later. You've covered all, if you just read it, reflected on that for some time, and then tomorrow read the next one, just like we have books of daily affirmations. It's sort of, this is, you know, guiding us step by step, day by day, training our mind to think about the whole path to enlightenment, and to have that in our mind, even where we feel like we're not making progress, we are making progress. There's many different ways that we can gradually train our minds. Or we can take something like Foundation of All Good Qualities, recite that every day, contemplate a different verse every day. Very easy to learn off by heart. It's only 14 verses, and then you've got the whole Lam Rim in your mind. So even you die that day, you've got the whole Lam Rim in your mind for next time. People like you and I, this is Lama Tsongkhapa speaking, see our feelings of desire and our other mental afflictions go stronger day by day. And the thing is, do we? Do we see that? Do we see, even as Buddhists, you know, do we see, are my afflicted states of mind getting stronger and stronger? Or do we think we're maybe immune to that because we are Buddhist, you know, and that somehow doesn't apply to us or protects us? So we really, it's a invitation to just explore those feelings of desire. As Lama Zopa Rinpoche once said, go to the shopping mall and just watch the mind of desire, but don't buy a thing. Just watch the mind of desire that goes to that thing. You know, as a nun, sometimes I'm like, why am I looking at that? You know, it might be clothes or things. Why am I even looking at the shop window? I don't wear any of that stuff. Like today at the Eastwick Park, I was going, yeah, probably in the old days, I would have worn something like that. I it's just like, that's a dangerous mind. No necessity. Nothing outrageous. It was just sort of warm and functional. I thought, yeah, that's pretty much me, functional. And just sort of, just look and see and go, ha. Because as soon as we investigate those minds, we weaken them. Already, we weaken that state of mind just by going, I see you, looking at things that are irrelevant to you. The problem is we have not even been able to train our minds in the paths for people of lesser and medium scopes of the practice. So, we can think it's a danger sometimes for people, for us coming into the Mahayana teachings and thinking, I don't need to. It's always advised that people not think you don't need to worry about the lower scope or the medium scope, because here I am, a great scope practitioner. But if we don't have that, we don't have a foundation. That is the foundation. We can have a Mahayana motivation in terms of right from the very beginning. But, these are foundations that we need. And so we have to check up, am I actually contemplating, precious human rebirth, which is even, before the lower scope? Am I contemplating about death and impermanence? Am I contemplating about karma and its effects and the sufferings of the lower realms? Am I contemplating about the objects of refuge and that protection for my mind? Probably we do that more than we do the others. We just check up that we're keeping our mind on the path. And some quotes from Tenzin Palmo. Most people feel cozy enough in samsara. That's the danger. It's like being in the God realms, because those in the God realms are feeling cushy and they're not suffering the aches and pains that we do. They don't experience the coarse level of suffering. And so everything's going really cruisy and it's very cozy. So why change? Why change something when it's nice and cozy? Hello, we're not stupid. We're not going to change that. But of course, what we know happens in the God realms, that towards the end of their life, a week before, they get a premonition of having frittered away all their positive karma, of their next rebirth and their death. And it's horrifying, and they're going to go down to lower realms because they haven't been able to cultivate more merit because it's all been too cozy. So it's dangerous to be too cozy. Don't be too cozy. I know, I'm saying that in winter. Don't be too cozy. It's a bit dangerous, isn't it? So they don't have the genuine, if we're too cozy, don't have the genuine wish to go beyond samsara, because it's quite nice in my little corner of samsara, thanks. They just want samsara to be a little bit better, a little bit more fluffy aduna, a little bit more warmth at the moment. Of course, and we want the opposite sometime later. And then Tenzin Palmo says, oh gosh, I remember this. It's quite interesting that samsara became the name of a perfume. Now, once a friend of mine, I have to say a Buddhist friend at that, gave me pre-ordination, of course, a bottle of samsara. And I thought, why do I need a bottle of samsara? I've got quite enough of my own. I mean, if I could bottle samsara and give it away, that would be great. It's bizarre, isn't it? I find it bizarre what, perfumes seem to be named after all our afflicted states of mind. What is it? Addiction, poison. I mean, no, that's fish. No, it's poison. And it's like, what's going on in people's minds? It's bizarre. And then Tenzin Palmo says, it seduces us into thinking it's okay. Samsara is not so bad. It smells nice. And quite a lot of it does smell nice. That's the problem. So the underlying motivation to go beyond samsara is very rare, even for people who come to Dharma centers. And this is not as a criticism, it's just an observation that generally we come, a lot of people come to Dharma centers because it's a change in their life. they're going through troubles or so forth. I mean, some people come running to the Dharma, no question. But there are a high percentage of people, I'd say, who come because, you know, something's not going well in life and there must be something more meaningful that I can gain, you know, out of this existence. But even so, you know, how many of us get ordained? Of course, I'm not saying everybody needs to get ordained. And I'm not saying ordained's the ultimate renunciation. It's just another step. By being ordained, it makes it I don't have to go down those aisles in the shops. I don't have to worry about buying certain things. And I don't have to, you know, whole lot, I don't have to worry about going to the hairdresser. And so it helps. It helps me. Hopefully it's a bit beneficial for others, but it definitely helps me. But it says to me, this is the path I'm on, and my aspiration is to lifetime to be ordained as swiftly as possible. So it's my personal aspiration. But even not getting ordained, you know, how many people do serious retreats? When we just look at the percentages, of course, this is not to criticize anybody because we've all got challenges and things in it, commitments in our lives and so forth. But just the reality, how hard it is to get our mind out of the samsaric mindset. Right? There are many people who learn to meditate and so forth, but with the underlying motive that they hope to make themselves feel better. So when I was at Vajrayana Institute, which I was there for many years, and I really look forward to Friday morning meditation because people would stay around after the meditation, would have a cuppa, and like this morning here, have a cuppa, have a chat, and we talk about all sorts of interesting topics. And when we come out of a meditation session and people went, oh, I feel so great, that was wonderful, I think, oh gosh, did I fail? Like the object of meditation isn't to feel great, but a lot of us think it is to feel great. And that's what we want, to feel good out of meditation. But in fact, the more we go on in the Dharma, the more, if our mind doesn't get challenged, then we're not going to transform, we're not going to change. So we need to be moved out of that comfort zone. And that's what the Dharma is all about, you know, moving us out of the coziness of samsara. So it's very interesting. I was thinking, oh gosh, maybe I should make more, you know, more analytical meditations. Anyway, and then you think, well, isn't it wonderful? They feel great. What a bind. As Tenzin Palmer says, if it ends up making them feel worse, instead of realizing this may be a good sign, they think there's something wrong with the Dharma. Right. Not that I'm making progress, but something's wrong with the Dharma. So one of the students at Tara Meditation Center is just going off, I think maybe next week, to do the 3-month Vajrasattva retreat at Tashita, and asked me, have you got some advice? And apart from saying, make sure you take all your cold supplements and anything needed for getting colds, because you will. You know, being with a bunch of people in contact for, you know, 3 months, bound to catch something. But it was like, well, just expect it's going to be a rough ride. And if it's going to be an intensely rough ride, you're going to go through, stuff comes up as physical illness, stuff comes up as torture to our mind, because it's like you're going through an intense purification process. Right. I remember when we were doing the 3-month Vajrasattva retreat at Chenrezig, and at one point I thought, okay, now we're in the churn cycle of the washing machine. Everything's being thrown up. That's what happens when you do, you know, serious retreat in practicing Dharma. It's not a smooth ride at all. Continuing on with the quote from Tenzin Palmo, we are always looking to make ourselves comfortable in the prison house. So this this is refers to also, we see the prison of cyclic existence as a pleasure grove or as a pleasure park in the Guru Puja. Lama Zopa Rinpoche also said, those in the physical prison know they're in prison. Like, it's obvious they're in a physical prison. The rest of us are in a mental prison. We have no idea we're in prison. The prison of our own mind, which is of our own making. This is us who's made that. We might think that if we get the cell wall painted a pretty shade of pale green and put in a few pictures, it won't be prison anymore. So that's our decorating samsara to make it look beautiful, even the bad bits that we don't want to talk about. But actually, literally, I visited this guy in the newly built forensic unit at Long Bay Prison, and I went into his cell, he invited me into his cell, and at the end, like, they had to do some exercise, but it was the teeniest, tiniest little round bit, and the wire was very thick and tiny little chinks. It was sort of like I don't know what you say the design of the wire is, but you couldn't get a view of the sky by any means. And you just had this thick wire with a little bit of light coming through the holes. And I did exactly that. I said, we are going to get you views of mountains to put on your walls so that you can have this sense of spaciousness to actually sort of, I said, we're going to have to do it with your mind, visualize the sky, visualize open space. How do you, make your mind an ocean if you, everything around you is sort of enclosing you? It's a disaster waiting to happen, really. Bad design. And I guess the Buddha would say, we're all in that. We just don't know we're in that. Yeah. So then going on with Tenzin Palmo, traditionally renunciation is combined with the purification of the spiritual motivation of bodhicitta, bodhi, enlightenment, citta, heart, mind. So the thought of aspiration for enlightenment. So this is very much coming from a Mahayana perspective, very much coming where Lama Tsongkhapa's coming from. That we have renunciation and bodhicitta going hand in hand. The two basic reasons we follow a spiritual path and look for liberation. One, we want to be free because we're aware of our particular sufferings, physical, but particularly mental. And the more that we habituate our mind to those negative states that exist in our own minds that cause us trouble, the more we want to be free of that. And so then there's this example of the burning house. Which comes up here. Let's take the traditional example of a burning house. Your whole house is on fire and you run from it. So we do have another saying of practice like your hair's on fire. In other words, you haven't got much time. You've got to get the hell out of here. Quick practice. There's no time to lose. But the example of a burning house, your whole house is on fire and you run from it. But all your family, your partner, your children, your parents, even your dog are still inside. What are you going to do? You don't just say, well, I'm out, bad luck, best of luck to you. You can get out too. And we know that even without any dharma, even without faith, people are naturally have that heart of compassion, and particularly towards loved ones. We hear that time and again where people go back in to rescue the dog, to rescue family and so forth, or even to rescue strangers. We do that. Or in the floods, we've seen that where people, like over East, all the floods and whole communities helping out each other. And so it's our human nature. to care. So that is an innate compassion that we share. And that is encompassed in this verse 8a. The definition of having generated the mind of enlightenment, the mind of bodhicitta. In short, if like a mother whose cherished son has fallen into a pit of fire and who experiences even 1 second of his suffering as an unbearable eternity, your reflection on the suffering of all mother sentient beings, so all mothers like that, has made it impossible for you to bear their suffering for even 1 second, and the wish seeking enlightenment for their sake arises without effort, then you have realized the supreme precious mind of enlightenment. So seeking their enlightenment, and that just spontaneously arises, just like your compassion and going into the burning house or going into the floods sensibly, because they say, what's the point of you drowning or burning as well? But I think in burning houses, often people do burn because they're just, is it compassion or is it love or is it attachment, as they say, but wanting to help the others out. It happens with drowning too, when people drown when they're trying to save someone else. So that's not necessarily got the skillful means. So we have that level of compassion, and when that comes spontaneously all the time, that's not in such a crisis situation. So again, when I was out today shopping for pilgrimage, I saw a couple of times just instances of people that I thought it was obvious to see the suffering, these different, people very, very upset or having a fight or just different things, and just like, oh, so sad, so sad. So it's a good training ground, to see, just as we see that suffering and think how sad that is, and that just makes our mind just go out towards them, even we can't necessarily do anything at this point in time to change that situation. We can see that how much suffering just goes on around us, where people are like out of control of their emotions. Yeah. Okay, so naturally this leads to the second basic reason for following the spiritual path. We want to pull them out as well. And then bodhicitta, so this mind of bodhicitta, as defined in the Lama Yeshe Wisdom Archives, is a principal consciousness, so a main mind that combines these two factors, wishing to free all beings from suffering. It's what we say when we say the refuge and bodhicitta prayer. And as Lama Zopa Rinpoche says, even your directing that towards one sentient being, a friend, a family member, someone in hospital, a pet, but you're thinking of all sentient beings, then you are generating the mind of bodhicitta. So you think, even just towards one. And actually, it makes it more real, because we can get this global idea of, all sentient beings, but I haven't really got an anchor for that. I haven't really got a genuine from my heart. So to get it into the heart, we have to make that connection with real, real in front of us beings suffering in our lives. So wishing to free all beings from suffering, and so therefore wishing to attain enlightenment in order to be able to achieve that for all beings. The certain amount we can do for our friends, for our family, for our loved ones, for even strangers, even enemies, on a day-to-day basis. But to be able to do that all the time for all beings, as the Buddha said, I can't take it away from you. I can't take your suffering away. I can't remove your afflictions. I can't implant my realizations. All I can show you is how to do that. I can show you how to do that. So we do our best. So the spontaneous altruistic mind of enlightenment, in other words, that spontaneous compassion that arises, can be either aspirational or engaging. So when we say aspirational or engaging, that's referring to whether we've taken the full bodhisattva vows in which engaging in the practice of the six perfections. We have the aspiration. We have it every time we say the refuge and bodhicitta prayer. We have that aspiration. So this then, that spontaneous altruistic mind, that spontaneous bodhicitta, is what is the entranceway to the Mahayana path. So then we're talking great scope. Right? So this second principal aspect, bodhicitta, to achieve enlightenment for every living being. So if we look, the purpose of generating the mind of enlightenment in verse 6, even if renunciation has been developed, if it is not possessed by the mind of enlightenment, by bodhicitta, it does not become the cause of perfect bliss of unsurpassed enlightenment. In other words, with renunciation, we cannot attain Buddhahood. And if we look then at the Theravadan path, the goal isn't Buddhahood, the goal is self-liberation. So you can attain that, but you can't attain Buddhahood, which we as Mahayana practitioners have made that our goal. Therefore, the wise generate the supreme mind of enlightenment. So those on the bodhisattva path. And then how we develop that, how we generate that mind, swept away by the current of the four powerful rivers. So this refers to four powerful rivers, can refer to our ignorant mind, and on the basis of our mind of ignorance or confusion, our incorrect views, our views of holding things to be permanent and so forth, that we've got things wrong. And so that becomes one of these four powerful rivers, the negative rivers: desire, attachment, and worldly existence itself, our samsaric conditions, in the world environment that surround us. So generally that's one way of perceiving this. Although His Holiness has also said you can think about it as the resultant fact: birth, aging, sickness, death, as in that first teaching of the Buddha, first observation of the Buddha, coming out from the palatial luxury into the real world of impermanence, birth, aging, sickness, death. So you can look at it both ways. So swept away by the current of those, tied by the tight bonds of karma, so hard to undo, reminding us of that karma is definite, and also that it's so hard to purify our mind so that we don't accumulate more negative karma. It's sort of like it's got a grip on our mind, that we don't have to invite anger in, it comes. We don't have to invite jealousy in, it comes. We do have to train our mind in love and compassion. They are in our nature, but we have to train that to be stronger, to counteract these, powerful rivers pulling us in the wrong direction. Caught in the iron net of self-grasping, so very hard, completely enveloped by the total darkness of ignorance, total darkness. So coming back to Pabongko Rinpoche's commentary on Lama Tsongkhapa's teachings, this brings us to the third and final section of our explanation of the wish to enlightenment: how to know when you've finally developed. To put it in, so we looked at that quote. To put it in brief, suppose a mother has watched her beloved child slip down into a pit of red hot coals. The fire is searing his body. She cannot stand to see it for a single second, and throws herself forward to save the child. all the creatures of the universe, all our dear mothers, are burning in the same way, in the same hell, in unbearable pain of the three lower realms and circle of life in general, when we cannot stand to see it even for a second more, when we finally feel the true wish to reach total enlightenment immediately, for the sake of every living being, well, our Lama concluded, you can say you have gained the wish for enlightenment. You have realized the supreme mind of enlightenment. I think we've talked about that extensively. And then we come to the third principal aspect, the correct view of emptiness. So this is how it's presented in the Mahayana path. It's presented in that order. And you could say, because cultivating the mind of bodhicitta is not emphasized in the Theravadan path, it doesn't mean they don't have great compassion. Absolutely. But the correct view of emptiness would come, sort of earlier along. So here we're looking at it from a Mahayana presentation. So here we have in verses 9 to 13, why we need the correct view, and then understanding what that is, how to know when your analysis isn't yet complete, then and when it's complete, and then the unique teachings of the Prasangika middle way consequence view, the view encompassed by Nagarjuna, Lama Tsongkhapa, in particular here. So we start with verse 9. Without the wisdom realizing ultimate reality, even though you have generated renunciation and the mind of enlightenment, you cannot cut the root cause of circling. Therefore, attempt the method to realize dependent arising. So the reasoning of dependent arising is that a wrong understanding of emptiness, we can fall into either an extreme of permanence, which is extreme of eternalism, which will, I will go on and on forever. Things are permanent and reliable and so forth. And then when the mind gets freaked out when we find out they're not, or we superimpose on top of what is there, what isn't there. So we might have a generic image. Every time we have a generic image, whether it's an image of myself or someone else or anything, it's a permanent image. And so I grasp at that as being reality, but it's only an image my mind has made up. And so we exaggerate either negative or positive. We exaggerate the permanence of the self. As Lama Tsongkhapa said, we under-negate. We under-negate. So we think there's something there that goes on and on from its own side. And that view is very strong in the world. That's why they do all those, splitting of atoms to find the one permanent substance that's got to be there somewhere, etc. The extreme, and so that's one extreme. The other extreme is when we chuck everything out, over-negate, annihilation or deprecation. So this mind of nihilism. Well, if that people hear the word emptiness and they hear nothingness, nothing, there's nothing. But it's a misunderstanding that they don't realize that emptiness is something that's not permanent itself. Emptiness of cup arises when cup arises. Emptiness of me arises when I arise. It's not like there's this sort of global, universal emptiness out there somewhere that people hear it like that and they think, oh, there's nothing, nihilism. So therefore, by establishing dependent arising, by that, the reasoning for dependent arising eliminates those two extremes. So dependent means what? not independent. It means it's got to depend on other things. And so something can't be permanent because it's dependent on other things. If it was permanent, it would be totally independent. Arising means that something is not non-existent, so it defeats nihilism. You know, I arise dependent on this and that and the other. The cup arises dependent on this and that and the other. So it's not non-existent. We are not non-existent. We exist. What a relief. So this is why, there's many ways to analyze, use points of analysis to reach the idea of emptiness. But the dependent arising is called the king of reasonings because it annihilates both of those two extremes at the same time. So no other reasonings are able to do that. So, for example, we have the Nagarjuna's 4-point analysis, which is identifying the object of negation. Okay, the I is the object of negation, the I that I hold to be permanent, that's going to go on lifetime to lifetime, just like now. That one that I hold to be permanent is the object of negation. So we have to identify what it is that is produced by my wrong views. And then I say, okay, well, if this I does exist like that, it's either got to exist inside the body and mind, inside the aggregates, or separate from that. And so then we do an analysis of, is it somewhere in the body and mind? Is it in the whole collection and so forth? Or is it separate from that? And then not finding it, we say that there is no such permanent self to be found. There is a self to be found, but not a permanent, as I have a generic image in my mind of me, that one doesn't exist. Right. So the only way it does exist is dependent on causes and condition, dependent on its parts, all the bits and pieces that make up me, for example, and dependence on conceptuality, on labeling. As soon as, labeling Chokyi, or even labeling female, or even labeling human, there's a label on top, but that human, that female, that Chokyi is not a permanent thing. It's just a mere label put on top, right? So this is getting to how we get to the correct view. Done pretty well. How are we going here? So then looking at how we know, where are we up to? I'll read through the rest of the verses. Showing the right view, one who sees the cause and effect of all phenomena of both cyclic existence, samsara, and the state beyond sorrow, we call nirvana, as forever unbetraying. So it's saying nirvana is forever unbetraying. So this we call lower nirvana, the one that comes from individual self-liberation, that it itself is not the final goal, that there's still, we'd say, knowledge obscurations, the imprints on our mind that still need to be purified, and the completion of generation and completion stage of highest yoga tantra before we attain Buddhahood. So they are both if we hold those to be forever unbetraying, which is a mistake, and for whom any object trusted in by the grasping mind has completely disappeared. So you have completely, let go of grasping, complete mind of renunciation, has at that time entered the path pleasing to the Buddhas, the path pleasing to the Buddhas. The definition of not having completed the analysis of the right view, in other words, how we know it's not yet complete. If the appearance of dependent arising, same thing, which is unbetraying, is accepted separately from emptiness, as long as they're seen as separate, one still has still not realized the Buddha's intent. So this is where we say it's like two sides of the coin. One side's dependent arising, one side's emptiness. It's the same coin, or it's the same cup. It is a dependent arising. Therefore, it's empty of inherent existence, of existing permanently, substantially, independently from its own side, because it can't be both. So we don't treat these as two separate things. If these two realizations are happening simultaneously without alternation, without us going backwards and forwards, and from merely seeing dependent relation as completely undertrained, the definite ascertainment comes that completely destroys the way all objects are perceived as truly existence. At that time, the analysis of the ultimate view is complete. The definite ascertainment comes that completely destroys the way all objects are apprehended as truly existent. So in other words, you realize dependent arising, and therefore you no longer hold anything to be truly and permanently, inherently existing from its own side. We could say that right now. We might have that intellectually, but not direct perception of that yet. So intellectually I know that, but I still see this permanent table, solid, even though I know it's not intellectually, I still perceive it as that. And then coming to the unique, special quality of the Prasangika view, the view posited in Lama Tsongkhapa that we attempted our best to understand. Furthermore, appearance eliminates the extreme of existence. In other words, if something appears, there has to be something for, if I see something with my eyes, there's got to be something there for me to see. So there is something appearing. So it can't be permanent, it has to arise. And emptiness eliminates the extreme of non-existence. In other words, it's empty of inherent existence. If you realize how emptiness manifests in the manner of cause and effect, it arises in dependence on the object arising, being produced, coming into existence. Then you are not captivated by wrong notions holding extreme views. In other words, we're not charmed or enthralled or entranced into the wrong view of reality. So this is posited in a way that is usually posited in a different way. So what Lama Tsongkhapa is saying, when you think of emptiness, you see interdependence. And when you think of independence, you see emptiness. Yeah. So, and once you're able to do all this, then having gained definite ascertainment, the final verse here, conclusion, in this way you realize exactly the vital points of the three principal aspects of the path: resort to seeking solitude, go into retreat, generate the power of effort, put effort into your practice, and quickly accomplish your final goal, my child. So there's a lot of work to be done before you decide, okay, now I've got it, now I'm going to go into long retreat. Of course, one can go into shorter retreat many, many times, do as many lamb rim retreats as you possibly can. Yeah. All right. So I've sort of rushed through that a little bit there. Any questions, comments? Where do I start? Okay, so we have completed in a not very comprehensive way, but nonetheless completed that module by going through all 3 scopes. And as it says here, it's for us to go over and over and over and over again in our mind, particularly meditating on the Lam Rim, using all of the tools available, which we have many. Lam Rim outlines is another really easy one to follow, of the points to reflect on. But I like the Lam Rim year because it's a little bit more juicy in the quotes and examples. And we connect that to our own lives, and there we go. So then we're having a break for a little while, and in the middle of that break, we have Geshe Zopa coming teaching. So that's from teaching on the 21, 22, 23, 24. Yeah, like that, of July, which is very exciting. Can people book for that yet? I know it's online, but can they book yet? Yeah, anyway, I didn't check it online to see. At that time, also, Geshe will be consecrating our Tara wall. Geshe gave some additional instructions when I had a little meeting with a quick, very precious meeting with Geshe at Thubten. And has given some little bit more instructions, and little bits happening day by day, believe it or not. And this is very exciting. But Geshe was very pleased with how far we've got. He was very happy with that. Yeah. So, and I think when John comes back, we'll have the shampoo. We've got the auspicious signs. So little bits, you'll see a transformation week by week. Very exciting. The shampoo, the frill. The frill. Yeah. So we'll have frills as well. Frills and thrills. So we want to invite as many people as possible to that morning to really, Geshe said, celebration, party. So yeah. So maybe we'll get Rob to do a little poster. Invitation. Okay. So our dedication prayers. And yes, so then the teachings will revert again to Friday mornings, starting in August. So beginning of August, and it'll be exploring mind training, Lojong teachings, using the 8 verses for thought transformation and there's 7-point cause and effect mind training. Okay, so dedications. Page 16, is it? Get that right? Yes, 17. 3rd verse down. Kewati Nyududa Lama Sange Tripune Trowa Chikyama Lepa Te Salako Pasho Chanchup Sencho Rinpoche Makye Panam Gekuchi Gepanyam Pane Payam Gongne Gongdu Pelwa Shu. So then looking at the prayers for the swift return of Lama Zopa Rinpoche, I had the great fortune to be at Thubten for the 49th day of Rinpoche's passing and all the pujas going on at that time for the days I was there. A bit of Nyungne, there were many different pujas going on. At Thubten, at Swayambhu, Rinpoche's house in Boulder, room at Boulder. So yeah, it's just like, it's non-stop around the place. Amazing. So we'll recite this one by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Peerless teacher, an assembly of children of the victorious one, Shravakas, Pratyeka Buddhas, victorious Losang, father and sons, together with your lineage, all the objects of refuge of the infinite lands, please now bestow the virtue and goodness to accomplish this prayer. in holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings through explanation and practice. You wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable Venerable Guru, to you I make request. Sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, while striving exclusively for the welfare of the victorious one's teachings and the mother living beings who suddenly departed to peace. What a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels and the great waves of a mind generation of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples. Okay, and then His Holiness the Dalai Lama, so page 19 in our folder. His long life of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. We're having an audience with when we go to Dharamsala. So we're having an audience with His Holiness on the 7th of July, the day after his birthday. Not alone, with 23 of my dearest friends. No, the pilgrimage group, our pilgrimage group. Yes. The wish granted. So if there's any special requests for His Holiness, I don't know what chance will. It might be just a hello, goodbye. I don't know. But anyway, the wish granting, wish fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, to the incomparably kind Tenzin Gyatso, I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. And then on page 23 for long life prayer for Tenzin Oso, Lord of Dharma, who in accordance with the various dispositions of those to be subdued, makes clear in the light of your well-spoken advice the sacred Ganden tradition, essence of Buddha's teachings. O foremost and holy Lama, to you who are supreme, O Lama, please, please live long.